Welcome back guys. Today I'm going to show you how you can turn your product photos from this into something that looks more professional like this. And I'm going to give you a breakdown of how I did this setup and also some accessories that may help you in your product photography journey. Let's jump straight into it. Now before we get into the technical part about lighting, let's talk about the elements that we're actually using for the product shoot. So to start off with, we have a black shelving unit which is just on its side and I'm using that as a wall. Then we have a lemon, we have a piece of ginger and the product that's in the middle, which is a lemongrass and ginger bar soak. Then behind that we have a backdrop which is provided actually by V Flat World. So if you're looking for backdrops, they're really solid pieces of material. We also have a palm leaf that's coming from the right hand side and that's held up using the helping hand that you can see in the corner. There's one last prop we need for this photo shoot and that is bubbles, and that's just going to add a little bit of motion to the photo. And the last thing that we have as well is my Panasonic S5 camera. This has a 50mm lens attached on it as well as a polarizer, and I'll talk about this later in the video. You may see a monitor up there, but that's just for my own purposes, so don't worry about that. That has nothing to do with the shoot, it's just so I can see the image clearer. So let's break down the lighting, and the first light, which is basically the fill light, is the Godox 403. That's my preferred choice, but you don't actually have to use a big flash like that. I just enjoy using this one personally, so any strobe flash will do. You can then attach a big square softbox to it, and that's going to give a nice spread of light. And then what we're going to do, and which is why we have this other diffusion panel up here, is we're actually going to double diffuse. Now to give an example of how this is actually affecting the shot, I'll show you what it looks like when we have just the softbox behind, and then I'll show you an example now of how it looks when it's double diffused. And you can see how the light looks much softer, and it gives it that sort of professional gloss that's going over the front rather than a very harsh light which is going to be beaming as a strip down the side of the product. So how can we improve our lighting setup even that bit more? This is a bonus tip that I wanted to share with you guys. As you have the light set up, don't have it so that it's pointing directly at your diffusion paper. What you want to do is actually angle it at a slight 45 degree. What this is going to do is create a graduated light across it, and that will apply to your product as well. And what I mean by that is you have a very harsh now point of light right up against your diffusion paper, and as that fades out, it's going to create a much softer look and also feather around the product, which will slowly fade out and kind of create that shape that you're looking for around your product. The second light we have set up is the QT403. It's exactly the same as the first light, but the only change that we've made is adding a different modifier. So on the top here, we have a reflector, and that's also got a grid attached. Now the reason for doing this is because when I turn this on, you can see that if I don't have the grid on, it's spreading the light much further out. And what we're trying to do with the grid is actually control that light and have it so it's only hitting the back here and not spilling onto the product. Obviously some of that light will naturally spill as it bounces off here and hits the back of the product, but that's sort of the effect that we want because we're able to get these nice highlights on the side of the bottle. So one piece of equipment you would definitely want to look at getting is a polarizer. And what this does is actually stops reflections. So as we apply the polarizer to a 50mm lens, what happens is this gradient that's coming across won't be as strong as it was, which means that the light that we're actually putting on the front of the bottle is a lot softer again, and in fact it lights the bottle nicely. You can still see a slight gradient, but that strip that's here isn't as prominent and won't stick out as we fire the light towards the product. So we're at that point now where we're ready to shoot, so let's cover the basics of how we're going to set up the final shot. So this camera is set up at a slight angle looking upwards towards the product to give it a little bit of power and presence in the final shot. The other thing that you want to do is have your camera set up on a 2-second timer, or if you have a shutter trigger then also use that. That way it minimizes any shake that we have when we're taking the final shot and it's nice, sharp and clean. For the settings, this is personal preference, but for me, I have it at 1/200 on shutter speed. I have 5.6 for the aperture and ISO 100 to keep that image super sharp. Now we can take a clean slate shot, because in Photoshop later, we're gonna overlay those bubbles and take another shot and just manipulate it to make sure that the actual final image looks as perfect as possible. So let's take that now. So the 2-second timer's gone off, that minimizes all that shake, and we also have a lovely clean slate image. I'm just gonna check this over on my monitor, but for me, it all looks nice and clean. So we have a lovely image that we can now use, and then we can get onto the motion using the bubbles. So now I'm gonna attempt to do this with the bubbles. It's gonna take a few times just to get it right, but if we keep practicing, we'll finally get the positions of the bubbles that we want, and then we can add those into Photoshop later. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Here is the final Photoshop image on screen now. If you want a tutorial on how to edit in Photoshop, comment down below. Please remember to like and subscribe, but I hope you're impressed with the results, and that's what we've managed to do with 2 strobe flashes. And I'll see you in the next video.